Ba-bam. Hello, and welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager. I am joined once again by co-host Ernie Quiroz. Welcome to the show, Ernie.
Hey, thanks for having me yet again.
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks for joining. And Ernie and I are going to talk about comedies this episode. So 2021 was unfortunately not a great year for comedies, I don't think, and we really needed some laughs, I think, to get us through this last year. Myself, I ended up just watching some comedies on TV. But we did want to highlight some comedy films that came out in the last year that we were excited to talk about that maybe slipped under the radar a little bit. And so we're going to kick it off with my first movie, which is my pick for the movie Bad Trip, which came out in the spring and stars comedians Eric Andre and Lil Rel Howery as two friends who embark on a road trip to New York City. And they are followed in hot pursuit by the great Tiffany Haddish, who is going after them because she wants her car back. That is the storyline, which is for essentially what is a hidden prank movie, where they stop along the way, and then the two comedians have different things that they do, crazy things in the spirit of like the Jackass movies or Borat, if you will, where they get into different shenanigans, and then it records the reactions of the people around them. And I actually really loved this movie. I'm giving it 4 stars, which a lot of people that know me, I seem so refined, but I actually it's funny. I don't love the Jackass movies, and I liked the first Borat, not as much the second one, although I thought that one had moments of brilliance. There were certain moments that made me laugh out loud. This one, I laughed all the way through. And I don't know that this was my favorite genre, but what I liked about what they did, besides that they have a great dynamic, I loved Eric Andre and Lil Rel's dynamic together, is that they make the joke about them. It's not as much being mean spirited to other people, like, look how stupid those people are that they didn't understand this. It's more about making themselves the butt of the joke. There's a scene where their genitals get connected, and then there's all these people watching it, and that scene made me laugh really hard. There's another scene where they go into the Electric Cowboy Bar, and as two African American men, and you're expecting to have this horrible, cringy Borat type thing, like horrible racism, but instead it ends up just being very, very funny and actually showing that we have maybe sometimes more things in common than we have in differences. So I liked that aspect of it, and I also just found myself laughing a lot. And not a lot of movies really tickled my funny bone this year.
This is this our fourth show that
Yes,
we're
I think this
recording? I
is about
think
our
so.
fourth show now that you've been on. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I was kind of surprised. I think our first two shows we were in agreement on all four movies on those two shows. The third show, I think we disagreed on one. I think we're destined to disagree on at least one per show. Uh, this I did not find funny at all. I really. Um, And at first, when you said Bad Trip, um, I didn't remember the movie at all. I was like, okay, I totally missed this movie. And then I think I pulled it up on Netflix, and then I vaguely remembered. It's like, okay, I remember this coming out. I don't remember anything about it.
Yeah.
And then and I didn't know that it was one of those hidden camera shows. And I started watching it, and then as soon as I realized it was one of those hidden camera shows, I just immediately was like, oh my god, what I'm not a fan of those. I do remember the Jackass movies, and that was what, how, 20 years ago. How long ago was that?
Well, I don't know. They
I
made a
think
lot of them. I
at
think
that
the last one was
they
6
did
years ago or
well.
something,
Well,
yeah.
the last couple. I meant more of the show.
Yeah.
I on some level I saw the appeal of that show of them, these stupid guys doing these stupid things, and they're hurting themselves, and I don't know, in sort of a Three Stooges way, that's kind of funny. Not necessarily a fan of the movies. Borat, I thought was funny. The first movie. Um, the second movie got all that critical acclaim. I'm not sure where that came from. Um, but I do agree with you that this is at least different from those in that they are embarrassing themselves. But ultimately, that all that meant was there was these, these pranks that maybe I got a chuckle out of, but it was just these shots of people sort of looking surprised, people in the street. And, how many times does that work of just showing these people like looks of shock or surprise and like, what the hell just happened? Or what are they doing?
Well,
Because the story itself just wasn't, I
well,
mean,
yeah, it's just a road trip. It's just an
yeah, you
excuse.
don't
It's
go into
like a
this
framing
movie,
vehicle.
yeah, you don't go into this movie for the story, but there was
No.
just, yeah, it
But the
just,
thing about the road trip is it allows them to go into different locations and they're going
yeah,
through like small towns in the South and things. And so, but one of the things I loved about it is unlike Borat and the Jackass movies, which take place primarily in kind of a fairly white environment, is that they're going into a lot of, communities of color. And one of my favorite scenes is actually towards the beginning at the yogurt shop. And the people, so this is what I thought was funny about it is the customers are standing in line for this yogurt and this crazy stuff is going down. And I won't give, in case people end up watching this. And instead of being like the way I feel like if this was shot in like some suburban kind of white milieu, people would be like, oh, disgusted, or then just leave or whatever. A lot of the people are just like they're getting back into it with them and they're like arguing, like, are you going to take that from him? And I don't know. There was just aspects of that I loved. I just loved the interaction with the different customers in the store and and then how many of them
yeah,
just waited around for their freaking yogurt after a half hour. I thought some people really want their frozen yogurt, even after they've seen how disgusting, when all these things are happening in the store. So, I don't know. There was a lot of it. It made me laugh, and not a lot of movies did this year. So
yeah. There was some moments where the people in the film definitely play along more than say, some of those other like the Jackass and Borat movies. Like again, where they go to the bar, Tiffany Haddish goes there first, and she has those wanted posters, and she puts them up, and then 10 minutes later, the two other guys walk in, and they're all like, "Oh my God, you're the guy! Like she was just here." And there was that one lady that was super into it and was
yeah,
super like, yeah, I thought she was funny. So definitely, I liked that aspect of where these unsuspecting, the people that are getting pranked are like actually part. They go along with it. And again, like
yeah.
you
Some
said,
of them
it's
had really
not
interesting
about
personalities. They were pretty fun to watch
yeah,
themselves. So
yeah. But is that necessarily funny? Like, at the end of the day, that I didn't really find it funny. And then the segments between the little gags, I thought were just kind of boring and just were not interesting at all. And I do
interesting.
feel like Lil Ray, I liked him a lot more in Free Guy. I don't know if you had a chance to see Free Guy. Uh, so I do. It's another movie we disagree on.
You liked Free
Uh,
Guy?
oh, I really liked Free Guy.
Ooh.
I liked. Uh, but I thought he was so much better in that. I think I agree that the two leads had chemistry, but it did not to what end. It just didn't work for me.
And I like both of the comedians. I especially love Little Rel. I was actually surprised to see him in this kind of movie. I was actually thinking of him in something like Get Out, or not Free Guy. I thought you were going to say I loved him in Get Out, and then you said Free Guy, and I thought, oh my gosh,
Well,
How are you?
he's only like in two scenes in Get Out. He's at the
Well, he's
beginning
pretty
and at the
essential
end.
character, and he's hilarious. So,
That's true.
but
Well,
I've
I
seen some of
thought,
his comedy specials too. He's really good.
yeah.
But okay, we'll have to agree
Uh,
to disagree. I'm giving it four
well,
stars. I'm assuming you're giving it what, another 1 star? Is it like one?
well,
Everything's one
well,
star or 4 stars with you?
well. Is it the is one the minimum?
Well, you can give
Do
something
I have to?
zero. You can get. I know I've given a zero review before. I gave Bad Boys 2 years ago 0 stars,
All right.
no
Well, then
stars.
it gets a zero for me.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty low.
That's
That's a big. I don't know if I've ever had that big of a difference on the show. 0 to 4 people. So watch it yourself and see who you agree with, Ernie or
make up your
Angela. Are you on
mind.
the 0 star or 4 star? That is a huge range. Okay, we'll move on.
So my first film is Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar. This is Kristen Wiig and Andy Mumolo. This is most of the team behind Bridesmaids made this film. Oh, and Jamie Dornan, who steals the show. But this is, and like kind of Bridesmaids, it's sort of that, again, sort of a scatological, non sequitur type humor. This is one where I feel like you could probably say this about all the shows, all the movies we're talking about, is either you get it or you don't. Either you
Hmm.
roll with it or you don't. It's either your brand of humor or it's not. And for me, this to me was hilarious. You talk about there was a couple times I had to stop the film because I was
Oh
laughing so
no, you
hard.
liked it?
Um, this was one that I can't remember when it came out, but I think it was towards the beginning of the pandemic. So I think it was one of those that was maybe
It
in
just got
theaters.
lost, yeah.
Yeah, it was in theaters. I think maybe pre-pandemic, and then when things started shutting down, it never found that audience, and which I think is a shame because I think this was like you said, comedies are meant to be seen with a bunch of people and you're all laughing. And I thought this was hilarious. I thought this was, to me, obviously Bridesmaids. So the storyline, again, the storyline, who really cares about the storyline? But Barb and Star, Kristen Wiig and Annie Mumolo are sort of these two middle-aged women. They're sort of like these very odd, uh, kind of, I don't know if nerdy's the right word, but these kind of women who have this job at Jennifer Convertibles. They're in a small town, and that's like the cool job. Uh, and they're a little bit square. They're a little bit, you know, kind of geeky. A little bit, they're older women, and
Hmm.
they're not the coolest, hippest people around. And they lose
They
their
wear
job.
culottes. That's all you had
They
to
wear
say.
they
They
wear
cool wear
culottes.
culottes. That
They
says
wear
it all.
culottes. They lose their job, and they sort of on a whim they decide, well, since they have really nothing going on, they're going to go sort of get away from it all and go to this town in Florida called Vista Del Mar, the sort of beach community. And then you get the subplot, which I was kind of not expecting. Uh, this sort of Austin Powers esque, uh, world domination subplot where Kristen Wiig in a dual role plays sort of this albino Doctor Evil
Yeah.
uh, character who has like this weird, crazy scheme to. She wants to get revenge on the people in this town for making fun of her with these deadly mosquitoes, and so. Jamie Dornan is her sort of right hand man, her henchman that's going there to the town to sort of enact this crazy plan. And of course, Barb and Star are going to this town not knowing that this is going on and sort of wind up, foiling this plot. Uh, but the story exists only uh, there as a vehicle for them to do these jokes and the gag, which for me, for the most part, work. And the two leads, I thought were great, were hilarious, and I feel like they've been friends for a long time in real life, and I feel like you really get the sense that they really had fun making this movie and just sort of riffing on each other.
And
And
see,
it's
and
just
that's what
this.
my oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and I would say like that's sort of this brand of humor of where it's almost just this who cares about the story? They're just kind of making up, these characters that on the surface seem sort of like these weird characters. But I feel at the end of the day, they're a little bit deeper where you really understand they have this friendship.
Mhm.
And it's really about these two friends. And for me, I thought it was just hilarious. And Jamie Dornan steals the show.
Yeah, as the love interest. So and they wrote Annie Mumolo and Kristen Wiig wrote Bridesmaids together, and so they obviously can write comedy. I'm actually was pretty disappointed in this movie. I can't believe that it's getting it's. I've already seen it on 4 different top 10 lists from critics I respect, and I was really shocked because I was super disappointed in this one. I went in with super high expectations. I'm a big Kristen Wiig fan. I mean, I will see just about anything she's in, and I've loved a lot of her work since Bridesmaids. Not Wonder Woman, but a lot of the other movies. So Skeleton Twigs, I love she tends to do a lot of darker comedies, and I've just really loved a lot of her work. I was super excited about this movie, and they do have a great dynamic. I actually think some of the funniest scenes in the movie were at the beginning before they get to Florida. I love the scenes at the beginning in the furniture place where they work, and someone actually wants to buy the couch at the beginning, and they don't want to sell it because they're like, well, we've had all these great conversations on this couch. They're like the worst saleswomen of all time. So I loved a lot of those scenes. I actually thought this movie could have used a little bit more of they just should have gotten rid of more of the plot because the whole Doctor Evil plot with Kristen Wiig's the alter ego character scheming to destroy Vista Del Mar. They spent way too much time on that, and I thought that got tedious because it's just like whatever, it's some sort of cheesy plot device, and then they spend a lot of time apart because they're both pursuing these romances, and that was disappointing to me because I wanted to see the two of them. They were the funniest when they were together.
Hmm.
So that was disappointing. So there was big sections where I wasn't laughing. I was just kind of like getting a little bit bored. It felt a little too long in parts. I will say, so on the positive aspects, besides their dynamic, I also really loved the look of this movie. I loved how bright and pastel and phony. I loved the look. We see so many movies these days. For some reason, all of Hollywood has decided that like sleek gray is how movies are supposed to look. And so, like, I think I call it the Marvelization of movies. Like, Dune had a lot of that look to it. It's like everything's brown or gray in movies, and this movie is like the opposite. The ocean is like super blue, and then the greens and the pinks and the reds, and I loved that. It looks the look was like the characters. It's really bright and cheerful, and I liked that about it. That it had a
Yeah.
different look to it, and I could watch Kristen Wiig do anything. I would watch her read the phone book, and so I love those characters and the way they interact together. To me, it just didn't have enough of that.
Yeah, for me, you're right. When they do kind of go on their separate tangents, and that is the film did lose some steam for me for that. Uh, I loved, I just loved that sense of humor, that brand of humor, and it really reminded me. I kept thinking of Anchorman, something like Anchorman that has just the bare minimum of plot, but it's of all these characters that each kind of have their own little quirks and eccentricities, uh, that just eminently quotable. Just these odd situations, and you get the sense that maybe a lot of it was improv, or just the chemistry with each
Hmm.
other really worked, and I haven't seen a comedy like that in a long time,
I
and
do
it
think it is a
really.
lot like Anchorman. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I do agree with you on the color palette. Like the brightness of it, and sort of these dance numbers, which goes to Jamie Dornan, who was in probably my most overrated film of the year, which is Belfast. Uh, but to see him sing and dance in this movie and do a song and dance number with pigeons, or singing to pigeons, I thought was hilarious, and just that's again almost like a Napoleon Dynamite, where either you get it or you don't. If you're not gonna
Yeah.
go into it, you're it's gonna fall flat, and you'll be like, "What the hell am I
Yeah, the
watching?"
movie's either
Or
going to be
you,
way too weird and goofy
yeah,
for you or not. And there were elements where I was really writing, and I actually liked the musical sequences. I thought those were kind of refreshing and fun and unexpected. When they first broke out in song, I said, "Whoa, I didn't know this was about to happen here." So there was,
yeah,
the elements of that I really liked. It felt for me there was just long stretches where I was like, doo, 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 almost like I wanted to hit the fast forward button, and that's never a good feeling in
yeah,
a comedy. I actually just feel like there's this trend to make movies way too long, and some films can kind of get it done. And I've been watching a lot
uh-huh,
of film noirs on Criterion Channel, an hour and 15, an hour and 20 minutes. Get in there,
yeah,
get it done, get out. And
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
comedies need to do a little bit more of that as well, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So
And then
anyway,
I do, and finally, the last thing I do want to say is, again, there. I think I felt like there was different kinds of humor. There was definitely like the physical comedy. I thought there were some of the more, sort of, sight gags or whatever. But one of the things I liked is just these. There would be these subtle throwaway lines that is, maybe kind of funny. Like she's left the magazine looking like, oh, I want to read this interview with Don Cheadle, which is just, it's just some stupid throwaway
yeah,
line that's kind of funny. But then they bring it back, and if you remember it, it just adds a whole new little twist, this little callback to this stupid little line that just made it so much funny. Like the whole thing with Trish, with this whole big thing with Trish, and then they spend the whole plane trip talking about Trish and
uh
coming up
huh,
with this whole like alternate biography for this girl named Trish, this ideal woman named Trish, and then at the end, uh, you get to see Trish, and who Trish is I think a really funny twist at it, and that's kind of humor that I appreciate.
yeah. And I loved the toxic book club or the women's group they were in at the beginning. I just, oh my god, I was like, that's why I don't join those kind of things. But there's the woman that's like all these rules, like we're only supposed to talk about this. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
like
six
that was
o'clock and they lock the door, and
Yeah, they wouldn't let the one gal in because it was late,
yeah,
so there was some great
yeah.
humor there, yeah.
Okay, so we will go on to my second pick, which I think is has a lot of similar things. It's another female-driven comedy duo, a pair. It's called Stop and Go. When I saw it, it was called Recovery. This was at South by back in March, and this is basically a road trip comedy. And I think what it suffered for a couple of reasons. I mean, it's a terrible title, both Recovery is a terrible title, and then I think they realized how bad of a title it was, so they changed it to Stop and Go, which is equally bad. But it essentially takes place in the time of COVID. It's a road trip comedy where it's these two young women who, and this is sort of like in the early days of the pandemic. One of their grandmothers is in a nursing home, and she really fears that this is not the place for her grandmother. They want to get the grandmother out, and so they go on this road trip to save the grandmother. So I think when you say COVID comedy, I think people were like, I don't really need to, no desire to see
Hmm.
that, and so I think that's kind of where it kind of fell flat. But the two leads in it, who I don't think they've made any films, and this is their first film. I'm going to pull up their names here real quick. It's Whitney Call and Mallory Everton, who Mallory co-directed the film. Uh, I thought they were hilarious. Again,
Hmm.
I thought they had amazing chemistry. I thought they had, and again, a mix of sort of highbrow and lowbrow humor. They were able to find humor in sort of the early days of COVID and sort of all the things that we went through. Of if people can laugh at that, it's a shame that it's sort of disappeared, because I think if nothing else, these two women have an amazing career. I would watch anything that they will do.
They're great.
They are great, and not to oversell it, but when I'm watching it, I think they had such great rapport. It really reminded me of, like, again, the old school comedians, and even like a Lucy and Ethel, almost, of just
Hmm.
this. That's what their relationship was like, of how they could play off each other. And then it's remarkable in the end credits, you see these little home movies that they did when they were really young, these really young girls, like, teenagers and preteens, and they were making these same kind of like stupid little skits and comedy things on old VHS. And so you get the idea that they've been friends their entire lives, and they've sort of been doing this, making these little silly things. And you see it here, however, 10, 15 years later, that they were able to make this film, and it seems so authentic and real and funny. And I really hope people get to see it and sort of not dismiss it of like, oh, I don't want to watch a movie about COVID.
I know, and it's really too bad it didn't find an audience, but maybe, it's one of these that could become like a cult movie. I could see that happening. I really enjoyed this one. I thank you so much, Ernie, for finding this. I never heard of this movie. And so I, just watched it like a week ago and loved it. I was surprised how funny it was. I think we're at the point now, it's not like we're over COVID by any stretch of the imagination, but some of the things, particularly this is during the early period when things were really shut down, but some of these things we're still doing, especially in my household. So it's pretty funny to us to the way they're like, using the Lysol and wiping everything down as they're going. And when you view it from the lens in the movie, you think, oh, yeah, I'm doing this, but it is funny still. And even though the plot line in a way is very serious because they're trying to save their grandma who's in a retirement home that's had a COVID outbreak, which, is a horrible thing because that's how we've lost so many people, right? But then they made it humorous, and they have this other sister who lives closer to the grandma, and they're also sort of trying to get to her before their sister does because their sister is kind of this clueless, this just
Yeah,
kind of beyond. Oh my gosh, my husband and I were cracking up so hard at the scene where she calls him. She's like, "I'm on a cruise ship.
she's on a
Everyone's
cruise
throwing
ship.
up. I don't know
Yeah,
what's going on,"
yeah,
And it's just like, "Oh my god!" And they're like, "Do you not know there's a pandemic going?" And she's like, "Whatever. I have to live my life. I'm not going to let it stop me." And it's just like, those people. Like, oh my god, I was laughing so hard. And then
yeah,
she goes from the cruise ship, and then they go to their house, and she's having a barbecue in her yard with all these people, and they're eating out of the chip dip, but in
yeah,
slow motion together. I mean, all the things you imagine are like your worst nightmare during COVID they put in this movie, but make it really funny. And their dynamic and their chemistry is really what sells it. Mallory Everton, who also co-directed the film and wrote it. So I mean, this is another just like, great to see women taking the reins here. First film. I mean, I would see the next thing they do together. So I really hope they
hmm
get a chance to make a
oh
movie
yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah. And then again, it's another one of where there's oftentimes there's these little moments that to me just really resonate. I don't know why this sticks out in my head, but towards the end of the film, where the car is kind of broken down, or the car won't start, and she's trying to start the car, and then she starts singing this little song, and it was just like, "Come on, car, please start." And it's like, I've done that before. Like, we've all done that
Yeah,
before,
yeah,
where we're kind of
yeah. You
praying,
start talking to the car,
you
like,
start
yeah.
talking to the car, and you're praying, and then so she's able to do these things that resonate with you, but do them just in this funny way. And it's just this little moment, but it's just so real, and it's
Yeah.
just the movie's filled with all those.
Right. And also when when people approach them, the way they start backing up right away, they're just like, oh, and so yeah, that's how
Yeah,
they didn't have the
yeah,
guy didn't have a mask on and so I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that I think a lot of people will find. I mean, it's quirky enough, either people will like it or not, but I mean,
yeah.
comedy is very specific, but I really like this one. So 3.5 stars for me.
And that's another one that's pretty cheap on VOD. I think it's
Hmm.
so hopefully that won't be a
Yeah,
barrier.
I was able to find it pretty cheaply rental, so not free, but hopefully some streaming service will pick it up. So, which our next movie, a streaming service has picked it up. So this one is available on multiple streaming services. I think HBO currently. A Shiva Baby, which is making a lot of top 10 lists, directed by Emma Seligman. I think also another directorial debut for a feature length movie. It's about a woman at a Jewish funeral service. She's a college student, and she runs into at this funeral service both her ex girlfriend and her current sugar daddy. Yes, you heard correctly. So Rachel Sennett plays the main character of Danielle in a great performance. It's interesting that this is making so many top 10 lists. This is, it's being called like a cringe comedy, which I can kind of see. I found this movie less funny than just kind of interesting. I wasn't a lot of laugh out loud funny, but it's a lot more of that kind of humor of like, oh no, it's kind of going from bad to worse. So it's like watching a train wreck basically because she's in this super awkward situation. Her ex-girlfriend's at this funeral service, this guy that she's seeing secretly, who then shows up with his significant other and their baby, and she doesn't, and so all these things start to unravel at this funeral service, and a lot of really like specific Jewish humor, which I also really enjoyed. What did you think,
Yeah,
Ernie?
I really love this film. Um, I didn't think it was that cringy as maybe some other people are thinking. Maybe my
Hmm.
tolerance for cringe. I know we're running out of time, but I just for me, um, this is a bad, we can't talk about Woody Allen, but it did feel a little bit like a Woody Allen film, not just because of the Jewish thing, but just because I think it was so smart and sophisticated in dealing with these relationships.
Yeah.
It sort of reminded me of that of what Woody Allen could do on his best days.
Right.
So
But
maybe not
directed
that
and written by a
comparison.
woman from a very distinctly
Yeah,
female perspective, which was enjoyable.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I did find it pretty
I
cringy at times. There were some scenes where I was like, oh, when she goes into the
oh
bathroom and
yeah,
does a certain thing, I was like,
oh
are
yeah.
you stupid? What are you doing right now? There's just, yeah, there's some of that type of humor in it. So how many stars for you on that one, Ernie?
Oh, 3.5.
3.5 for Shiva. I'm giving that one 3. So Stop and Go was actually a little higher for me. And it was just based on how much I laughed, quite
Yeah.
honestly. So
Oh, and I don't think I said, but Stop and Go was also 3.5 for me.
also 3.5 for that one. Yeah, I'm giving that one 3.5 as well. So that's, I think, one of our big recommendations for this show. I think actually we both, let's see, we did not agree on Bad Trip. That I recommend it. Ernie does not. See who you agree with. Barb and Star, we reversed on. Ernie loved it. I did not. Stop and Go, we both liked, and Shiva Baby, we both liked. So there you go. Um, as always, you can go to our website at realfilmsnobs.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, where you can hit the subscribe button and then get notified when a new show is posted. I'd like to thank, as always, our fantastic crew in absentia, but especially Brad for taping the show, our sponsors. We're on CC Media in Salem, Scan TV in Silverton, Corvallis Access Media, KMUZ Radio, and KMWV Radio. Have a great day and great movies. Goodbye.